Black Star Network is.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Folks, today is Monday, April 6, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Bodycam footage out of Jacksonville, Florida has been released showing cops tasing a black man. We'll talk with his attorney, Harry Daniels, right here on the show. Oh, my goodness, y'all. Donald Trump, I thought this was supposed to be this amazing, wonderful, awesome economy. They're touting the jobs report that came out on Friday, but guess what? The Fed chair says we're actually looking at net zero jobs. We'll talk to economist Morgan Harper on the show. Also, Pete Hegseth said, oh my goodness, a soldier who was found in Iran over the weekend, it was like Jesus being resurrected. Yo, seriously, he actually said that, y'all. It's lots we're gonna talk about on today's show. Trust me, it's going to be absolutely insane, including in Baltimore. How is it that right-wing newspaper and television, Sinclair Broadcasting, why are they targeting black elected officials, including the mayor and now Governor Westmore? We'll talk with the Baltimore activists about that as well. Lots to break down. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Jacksonville, Florida Sheriff's Office getting called out for police brutality after the arrest of a black man. The body cam footage has been released. This is what Dashaun Williams looked like after he was arrested in November. Yeah, this is the photo. Civil rights attorneys Ben Crump and Harry Daniels plus Gerald Griggs are investigating what they call a troubling pattern of excessive force by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Now, check this out. The body cam footage of the arrest of the 24-year-old Dashaun Williams, of course, has been released. In the video we're about to show you, officers are using a stun gun and repeatedly beating and kicking Williams. Williams was one of 4 men arrested as a result of a months-long drug operation. Attorneys say that no matter the charges, no one deserves to be treated like this. We're going to warn you, folks. The video is extremely hard to watch. Total time is about 16 minutes. We're not going to play all 16 minutes, but you're going to get a sense of what actually took place. Here we go.
Get up, get up!
Hands by your back. Hands by your back. Watch your hands. 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 Watch that hand. Watch that hand. Give it up. All right, we got it. I got it. Got hands. Got it. Yeah, handcuffs? Yep. Don't you move, motherfucker. You good?
Roll to his right, roll to his right, and we'll search for guns.
Have your neck.
Nice job, guys.
Rescue?
Yeah. Call your medic up here, or they're standing by right now. He is clear. Is this car clear?
What contact?
It's clear, it's clear. I cleared it.
Man, just want to say nice on top of
You have the trunk pop? No.
Rescue those, man. Good?
Don't even think about it.
Have them stand by. Let me secure this location. And then
He's back inside the conduit.
JSO.
Nobody in
All JSO dudes good?
Harry Daniels, who's attorney for Dashaun Williams. Harry, glad to have you here. The contention that you and Ben Crump make, and Gerald Griggs, that is, this was excessive force?
Absolutely. It was not just excessive. It was unlawful force. And it's another video where you can see from the perspective of the officer who was punching him multiple times and another officer kneeing and kicking him in the head.
So let's do this here. Control room, get the video, get the video queued up of the officer, the one who was punching. Let me know when that video is ready. Harry, go ahead.
Yeah, from my stance, that Dashaun never resisted. He complied. They simply told him to stop. It was part of drug operation sting. He was caught off guard. He didn't see him. He stopped. Then they tased him. The law is very clear that you cannot tase a person for passive resistance. He was not resisting at all. He was being compliant. And also, Roland, what you don't see from that angle, he was tased by two officers, where he not only had 50,000 votes going through him, he had 100,000 votes going to him, which is against taser policy of being tased by multiple officers. So any compliance to let me see your hand, they never asked for it to show his hands. In the video, you can hear him saying, I see his hands. But even if he wanted to put his hands behind his back, he had complete muscular incapacitation, neuromuscular incapacitation with the taser. And during that time, he's getting punched, kicked, kneed in the face multiple times. That resulted in a fractured jaw of Dashaun Williams. And Roland, here's the thing. This happened in late 2025, November 2025. The only reason that the video is now out is because it's through his defense attorney, the discovery was sent to him, and they received a video through the discovery in his criminal case. The Jacksonville Sheriff Office, they posted all the videos to this operation, but they conveniently left out the arrest of Dashaun Williams. Once we got the video, his girlfriend got in contact with Ben and I, and we started from there. But this is not just a one-off. We have an incident that happened, that another video was just released, where another African-American was beaten by the Jacksonville Sheriff Office. So this is systemic, from William McNeil to LaKen Woods. We can name so many cases.
Let's roll the video from the other angle. Keep the video rolling here. So, Harry, I'm sitting and watching this video. I mean, you're right. I mean, we're watching it. He's not resisting. He's not fighting back. Cue it up again. I want to see how many times that officer actually punches him in the face. 1, 2, 3.
These are close hands.
4.
These are close hands.
5, 6, 7. So there was 7 times he was punched in the face. Yeah, and I'm watching it. He's not. I mean, even from the other angle, his lower body, he wasn't kicking, he wasn't squirming. The officer's just waylaying on him.
Yeah, there's no rhyme, reason. There's no police practices whatsoever. I mean, even you see the blood on the ground there.
Yeah.
Spitting blood out of his mouth. And you got other angles here. You can see where he got tased at this angle. Then you can see from this angle where they kicking him. You can see kicking him in the face. I mean, this is. Yeah. I talked to John Burris, who represented Rodney King. And he said this is tantamount to the same beating that Rodney King received. The only difference that Rodney King beating was longer. And Roland, this is all on video, body camera. They really don't give a damn in Jacksonville. They don't really care. They get on video, they gonna do it. You know, it's not like it's a amateur cell phone that's capturing them. They really don't care. And it's continue to happen. We done brought lawsuits after lawsuit, settlements after settlement, and it's not getting better. It's not getting better. We have requested DOJ to come in under the Biden administration as well as the Trump administration. And these people here, and let's say what it is, these black men are getting brutalized. It doesn't matter what they're charged with. You know, police officers not judge your executions. Your job is to arrest a person and bring them in front of a judicial officer if they're going to be tried by a judge and jury. That's all your job is. Williams was never, ever resisting. He was compliant. And to be beaten like this, it says something about the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And regardless of what his charge is, anybody who can look at this and say this okay, you know, they got to question their humanity. And they're really something that they are part of the system that is flawed. And, you know, we got cases after case in Jacksonville, and I appreciate you for illuminating these things, but, you know, something has to really take place here in Jacksonville. Civil rights activists, protesting, marching, you know, we calling for it, boycotting, whatever is needed in order to deter this, voting, get this sheriff off of office. He's a black guy. T.K. Waters, he's a black sheriff, and he sit and watch his deputies terrorize and beat the hell out of the black citizens of Duval County.
All right, then. Well, we certainly will follow this case and see what happens next. Harry Daniels, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it, Roland. Take care. Have a good night.
All right, folks. Got to go to break. We come back. More to discuss. Lots to break down, including how quiet are those black MAGA people? Remember how they were touting how amazing Donald Trump is for black people? Well, we're going to show you the Trump budget cuts, what they want to do. And trust me, what did I tell y'all? Defunding Black America? It's exactly what their entire focus is. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Why does it feel like we're going backward? Voting rights under attack, schools stripped of funding, black history erased. This is the Trump MAGA agenda. They want to take us back. They are redrawing congressional lines in states across the country, deciding who gets power and who gets silenced. We see what this is, a power grab. Virginians won't be fooled. Show up, vote, take back our power. It's a temporary measure that gives the people, not politicians, the final say. Vote yes by April 21st.
Protect your mind. I love you, son. And your mother. More than anything. And I'm gonna keep doing the best I can to prove it.
If you've seen it in your mind, you can create it. Protect your mind, son. It's your greatest asset.
Protect your mind.
What's up? It's Talib Kweli. I'm CEO. This is the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, let's talk money. Donald Trump, we know he never gave a damn about black people at all. And guess what? His proposed budget makes it perfectly clear that their effort is to continue to defund Black America. Who are they targeting? Programs to promote diversity, helping Black and Hispanic students, and also boosting minority-owned businesses. All initiatives Trump derided as woke. In section after section of this budget request, Donald Trump sought to cut programs he connects to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which he argues discriminates against white people. The proposed cuts, which are tiny compared with the $1.5 trillion budget he wants for the military, reflects his focus on stamping out federal initiatives created to support disadvantaged groups. Let's walk through these cuts. What do they want to cut? Pull them up. $510 million for grants for farmers, for agricultural and research. $82 million in loans for rural small businesses, fully eliminated. $61 million support for farmers and food markets. Yep, wipe it out totally. $240 million for school meals and food education for children abroad. Absolutely eliminated. $659 million for community building grants. $47 million to support minority-owned businesses. Totally wiped out. $449 million for economic development grants for communities. $1.6 billion for weather forecasting, fisheries, and coastal protection. $993 million for scientific research and technology standards. $150 million to support for American exports as well as trade. $2.2 billion for broadband and internet access programs, which actually really helps rural America. And $8.5 billion funding for public schools. $1.5 billion for vocational training and adult education, totally wiped out. $2.7 billion for college access and higher education support. $15.2 billion in roads, bridges, and infrastructure projects. $1.1 billion home energy efficiency and clean energy programs, totally wiped out. $1.1 billion for scientific research funding. $386 million for environmental cleanup programs. $150 million cutting-edge clean energy research. $4 billion to help paying home heating and cooling bills for low-income families. A total wipeout of the program. $768 million for refugee resettlement assistance. $819 million for care and shelter for migrant children. $775 million for local anti-poverty programs, fully eliminated. $5 billion in cuts for public health programs, mental health services, and disease prevention. $5 billion for Medicaid, for medical research. $129 million. Healthcare quality and safety research. $356 million for emergency preparedness and disaster response. $1.3 billion for FEMA community disaster preparedness grant. $707 million for cybersecurity protection. $52 million for airport and transportation security. $40 million for protection against chemical and biological weapons threats. $53 million for funding for homeland security operations. $3.3 billion community development block grants for local neighborhoods. $1.3 billion in affordable housing construction grants cut. $393 million for programs to reduce homelessness. $529 million for housing assistance for people living with HIV/AIDS. $489 million for housing and services for Native American communities. $50 million in grants to help communities build more housing. $16 million for enforcement of the fair housing and anti-discrimination laws. You know, they don't want to do that. $58 million for home buyer and renter counseling. $45 million renewable energy development. $1.7 billion for grants for local law enforcement and public safety. Oh, that means they want to defund police. $20 million to cuts in civil rights mediation and legal access programs. $1.6 billion for job training for at-risk youth. And $395 million for jobs program for low-income seniors. $234 million worker safety and labor protection. And it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Russell Vought, who has the Office of Management Budget, he really is about cutting all of these programs. They don't care about any of them. But like I keep telling y'all, it's about defunding Black America. And all the people who said, oh, no, not Donald Trump. Surely not. I mean, right now, they're touting what's happening in space with Artemis, too. But he's cutting $3.4 billion in NASA space and earth science research, $297 million for NASA technology innovation programs, $1.1 billion for the International Space Station operations. It's probably because he was sending that money to Elon Musk. Yep. That's what they're doing. And those are the kind of cuts. And if they get their way. Now, remember, this is the budget coming out of the White House. Congress appropriates money, all right? And so remember, how it all works is that the House, the Constitution states that any bill dealing with money begins in the House. I can guarantee you these House Republicans are not trying to cut all of that because especially when it's about broadband, rural communities, oh, they love that when it was in the bills passed by President Joe Biden. But you now see how they operate. You see how they don't care. And see, you make these kind of cuts, mind you, he wants to make these kind of cuts, but then he wants to increase the Pentagon budget for the first time over $1 trillion. He wants the Pentagon's budget to be $1.5 trillion. No country spends close to that on defense. It shows you the priorities of this thug in chief. Bring my panel right now, Dr. Omekongo Dibinga Sr., Professor of Lecture, School of International Service with American University. He joins us right now. Glad also, he of course is the author of the book, Lies About Black People, How to Combat Racist. Thelma Anderson is the creator of the Public Opinion Court. She's also author of Shut Up and Prosecute, joining us out of Dallas. Show the book. Yeah, there we go. All right, there we go. Dr. Zachary Kirk, educator, content creator out of Atlanta. Glad to have all three of y'all here. Budgets reveal the priorities of the people that present them, Omekongo, and it's perfectly clear. We see where Russell Vought and Donald Trump are coming from when it comes to this budget. If it's black, if it's minority, it's got to go.
It's got to go, period, bottom line. And it's so frustrating when you talk about, where are the black Republicans? Where are all the Trump supporters? This man is destroying every aspect of areas that affect our community and the nation. You mentioned the internet and how that's especially something that's important in rural areas. You talk about the cutting from the police and law enforcement. This guy wants, one of the things I posted online the other day was you can't protest to free Palestine when you're broke, when you're running from ICE, and when you're fighting, what this government is doing. This guy wants to make it impossible for anybody who is not wealthy to be able to function. They want them to have every aspect of dependency on the government or the Trump administration possible, so they want to cut access to everything. Where are the black Republicans? Where are the white Republicans? Where are the evangelicals who talk about, feeding the poor and clothing the, those who don't have clothes and all of that other type of stuff? Like you said, you show what you value by your budget. Show me what your budget is, and we show you what you value. So really, at the end of the day, I think that some of these black Republicans, they still feel like they're going to get over in some way, shape, or form. They feel like there's going to be some type of carve out for them. They feel like there's going to be something that's going to allow them to still get over. But the people who follow these black Republicans, the people who follow Black MAGA and all of them, their minds should be opening up right now to understand that this government, Trump, Vought, they want to rip every aspect of service that you could possibly get your hands on, so you can spend all your time just trying to make ends meet and not being able to be engaged in anything else. And we're struggling because of it. And I'm hoping that these guys wake up, Roland, but I can't see it. This is why we just got to vote them all out.
But it's not just them, Thelma. I mean, you've got a lot of these FBA ADOS folks who love having all the smoke for Democrats, mighty quiet on these cuts.
They have no choice but to be quiet, because to me, and I'm pretty sure to every other American that has common sense, it's very clear that Donald Trump is not only clearing the way to legally discriminate against not only minorities, but based on race and gender. He's clearing a way to continue to drain the swamp. This is a very clear segue for him to continue to steal from the American taxpayers, the ones that are actually doing and enriching the country, by him enriching himself in moving funds away from necessary programs that have been here and been funded for decades and decades, and using it as an excuse to continue to funnel and enrich himself, enrich his friends, enrich pedophiles in this country by starting a baseless war. Why else would you increase a budget to $1 trillion for domestic, and you're taking away from the actual individuals that live in this country and need that money? That is nothing but an excuse to continue to steal. And if these senators and these representatives don't stop this, they're going to have an even harder time when we're talking about the midterm election.
Absolutely. Zachary?
Roland, I want to take a brief moment and just add a little bit to what you said about they're not defunding the police because that they're defunding the police, because no, they're not defunding the police. They're adding to the police budget. The Department of Justice is going to get a $4.7 billion increase over the budget they had in 2026. The Bureau of Prisons is going to get a $1.7 billion increase over what they had in 2026, not to mention the huge amounts of money that's going to the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, but not to TSA, because they're defunding TSA even further than what they funded in 2026.
But those are, I got it. Those increases are to federal law enforcement. But I'm saying
No, yeah.
they're proposing cuts to local policing. And remember,
correct.
He was touting that while running. And again, trust me, if a Democrat president proposed $1 billion in cuts to local policing, the Republicans would be going crazy.
They'll lose their mind. They will lose their mind, not to mention the huge amounts of increase that's coming towards ICE and what they're going to do. They're increasing beds by over 100,000 new beds in detention centers to be built, over 30,000 new family units at detention centers. And I'm still wondering to myself, who's going to be put there? I mean, I think we kind of know from if we watch your show who they trying to put there eventually, because we know who the real target is and who the real target has been. This budget is absolutely preposterous. And and what's shocking to me, what's disappointing to me, is I am watching my fellow content creators. I am watching fellow Democratic talking heads, people in the commentary space rolling, people that get a lot of credit and a lot of credibility, who get a lot of acclaim in the YouTube streets and the social media streets, the content creator streets. And these people are sitting here arguing among themselves about Hassan Piker and Jennifer Welch and bullshit and not doing any kind of education around this. Now is the time for everyone who cares about democracy and everyone who cares about the working class in this country to come together and in a coordinated attack, tear this shit down. Lobby Congress right now, before the budget even moves forward. Start right now going to senators, going to representatives, and demanding that they vote against this. Not when it's on the verge of passing, like we did with the One Big Beautiful Bill. The fight started Friday on the day this man dropped it. This man dropped this on Good Friday, on the same day he did a whole bunch of other nonsense. That's when we should have started the fight. We're already 3 days behind.
Absolutely. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We come back. What's happening in Baltimore? You've got a right-wing company that owns the local Fox affiliate, that owns the main newspaper. And why are they targeting black elected officials there, especially the mayor and the governor? We're going to break down for y'all how Sinclair Broadcasting's chairman is using the power of the media to target black people. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. That goes to fund this show and the other 5 shows on the network. If you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. You can also use this for credit cards as well. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
Hey everybody, I'm T.D. Jakes, and I want to encourage you to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. It'll blow your mind.
You've heard me say numerous times why the media is critically important, the role the media plays. I've always said for a long time, the media can build you up and the media can also tear you down. We're now living in a very unique world in terms of how right-wing folks are looking to control the media, how they're looking to dominate the media landscape. We see right now how Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, how he is using Twitter to drive right-wing hate on that particular app. In fact, Nate Silver, who covers a lot of politics, he put out a tweet talking about these are the Twitter accounts with the most engagement so far in 2026. And you see the red. Go to my iPad. You see the red, and that shows you red right-leaning, blue is left-leaning, and neutral. And of course, Elon Musk was really upset that a Joe Biden Super Bowl tweet got more engagement than he did, so he ordered the algorithm to be changed to drive his Twitter account. And, so you see right here how they are all echoed. All of these right-wing folks, you see how they built up and how they're echoed. Then, of course, you now have the Ellisons who purchased Paramount, who also just closed a deal to get Warner Discovery. And then, of course, we can, obviously, you look at Rupert Murdoch's and Fox News, Newsmax, Salem Radio. Then, of course, we look at the Nexstar deal. They're trying to get Tegna, Sinclair Television. They own a number of local stations all across the country. The chairman also was involved in the buying of the Baltimore Sun. Now, keep in mind, he doesn't have any official role at the Baltimore Sun, but doesn't mean he doesn't run and control the Baltimore Sun. And he does. And what has been happening in Baltimore, he has been using the Fox affiliate and now the Baltimore Sun to specifically target African Americans. David Smith is from Baltimore, and he believes that he's really representing white Baltimore, and he frankly believes that black folks have too much power there in Baltimore. Now, you won't hear him say those things, but you have an absolute right-wing agenda that's taking place in Baltimore as we speak, and he is using the media to go after as many people as possible. They were attacking Mayor Brandon Scott all throughout the election. He won in huge numbers. They couldn't stop that. And so you see what's going on. Now, Semaphore reported this today. They're exclusive. Maryland's biggest newspaper is going after the governor's 2028 campaign. So when you see this story, it says the owner of Maryland's biggest paper and TV stations is keeping close tabs on his outlet's investigation of the state's governor. In recent months, the Baltimore Sun has brought on a team of investigators from its sister television station Sinclair to comb through Governor Wes Moore's records as he seeks re-election and eyes a potential White House run. Now, what's interesting is they report that they sent some emails emails and letters to Governor Wes Moore's team asking for them to respond to a number of issues, including the governor's service in the Army, the basketball scholarship he had been offered, and other questions. Then they got frustrated with them not wanting to answer. So it says, so one of the investigators, Drew Sellens, fired off a note to the governor's communications director, David Turner. And then it goes on to say, blah, 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 and hard-hitting. Well, but what happened was they were all on this email. It says the Sun's investigative team was thrilled with the email. That's a hammer. Sean Lawler, another investigator working on the Sun project, responded, accidentally including Moore's team on the reply. Minutes after the note was sent, several email addresses attempted to recall the unseen Lawler's email. Too late. A feature in some email clients. But here's what's interesting. One of the people trying to recall the email, David Smith, the owner of the paper, who had not been visibly included on the original emails, according to a copy of the request shared with Semaphore. Davon Love is the Director of Public Policy, Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle in Baltimore. He joins us right now. Davon, quite interesting what was happening there. Again, the local Fox affiliate was attacking the mayor left and right in the last year before he ran for re-election. They were going hard. They were supporting other candidates against him. He crushed all of them. Crime has dropped. Huge reduction there. We see all sorts of things. But if you look at the Fox affiliate, as well as the Baltimore Sun, you swear nothing good is happening in Baltimore. This is a direct targeting of black leadership by the white-owned conservative Sinclair Broadcasting, David Smith.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, Roland. I think it's really important to have this conversation. If I can just lay some groundwork, right? Because I want to talk, and you covered when Marilyn Mosby was being targeted by the Department of Justice, right? And it's important for your audience to note that the importance of going after Marilyn Mosby, right? She was someone who charged the officers that were involved in precipitated the killing of Freddie Gray. But she also, her and I worked on a piece of legislation that vacated the convictions of those for whom the testimony of corrupt police officers was the basis of their conviction. And so that was something we worked on in 2019 that passed, right? She also decided to not prosecute low-level marijuana convictions. Those are the examples of the kinds of policies that recognize the way the criminal justice system has been targeted towards our community. They recognize that. That is a policy agenda that they are against. And so we saw, vigorous media coverage. And there's a book by a brother named Derek Musgrove, Rumor, Repression, and Racial Politics, where he actually documents the interplay between right-wing media and Department of Justice prosecutors, right, who typically put out stories, right? So what they actually convicted her for was mortgage fraud, right, which, given the way that it happened, is something that most people do all the time, right, that people aren't prosecuted for, and taking her own money, right, with the guise of corruption, right? Because in a society structured on racism and white supremacy, our collective consciousness is conditioned to see Black people as inherently prone to criminality, right? So those stories, putting them out over and over and over again, create a context where our own community questions the legitimacy of those that are in elected office. And so it wasn't about corruption. That wasn't the political purpose, right, of what the coverage of her was about. It was about going against an agenda that challenges racism and white supremacy in the way that is weaponized against the criminal justice system. So if we go to today, right, and you mentioned the current mayor, Brandon Scott, for whom David Smith, who's executive chairman of Sinclair and owns the Baltimore Sun, he doesn't control the mayor. And one of the key parts, and it's important, you laid out, David Smith as an extension of Donald Trump. In 2018, he actually said explicitly, publicly, that his job is to carry Trump's message into people's homes. He owns 40% of those local news companies. And it's important for people to be clear that that is a particular kind of pernicious propaganda. It's one thing for people to seek out media where they're having political conversation, like platforms like this and others. But when you talk about local news, people going, they're getting up in the morning, they getting their kids up, they playing in the background, those stories come up. Or they're at home, at night cooking dinner, they got the news playing in the background. So there's a really pernicious kind of propaganda that local media is capable of that David Smith is using as a part of his political agenda. So against the current mayor in Baltimore, one of the most important things that the Scott administration has done is, at the same time, law enforcement says that there is a shortage of law enforcement officers. There's been this historic decline in homicides, non-fatal shootings, and many other categories of crime. What he has done is invested an unprecedented amount in community-based organizations, particularly community violence interrupters, We Are Us, Tendaya Family, the Peace Team, right? Challenge to Change, a variety of organizations, around the city, who many of them networks of formerly incarcerated folks who can go out and to address, these conflicts before they happen. That it has been investments in those kinds of organizations simultaneous to a police shortage that demonstrate that in order to get public safety, law enforcement is not to be central to that. And that goes against a very fundamental right-wing policy position, right? What David Smith wants is propaganda that forces people to believe that diminishing law enforcement undermines the capacity for our communities to be safe. And Baltimore has demonstrated the opposite.
Well, to your point, I'm going back to the SEMA4 article. Pull it up. It says here, they said the Sun fired a reporter after they complained in a public Slack channel that the paper had published a story from Sinclair, this is the TV outlet, on former Democratic prosecutor Marilyn Mosby's attendance at a barbecue while on home detention. The Sun reporter, Madeline O'Neill, said the story was old by the time it ran in the paper and it was missing crucial information. Quote, the story was already several days old on Friday and running this incomplete version threatened my relationship with the source, O'Neill said, according to Slack messages shared with SEMA4. I can't do my job if editors are going to undercut me like this. I see almost no difference between the Sun and the local Sinclair station, another staffer said, other than the fact that there are some people at the Sun who predate the sale. Well, that reporter was fired for actually saying that. And so the thing that people have to understand, Davon, what was happening in local news, you used to have robust newspapers, 2 papers in the city. Then it went down to 1. In the case of the Baltimore Sun, they've had massive cuts. And so now, by having a right-wing owner who is controlling the lever of the local station, TV station, and the local newspaper, what people don't realize, your other outlets are really driven by what happens in the daily newspaper. And so, your radio stations, I can tell you, I worked in radio in Dallas. Well, what happened is the Dallas Morning News and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram were essentially all the stories done on local radio. We would just rewrite what was in the newspaper. The local TV stations do the exact same thing. And so this is how David Smith and Sinclair are using their power to try to target folks. And they created this investigative unit claiming to focus on public corruption. But they're focusing on all these other cultural issues like tampons in school bathrooms. This is a right-wing agenda that they imposed on their local TV stations, and he's doing the exact same thing with the local newspaper.
Yeah, and one of the things that's been central to their approach has been the way they cover crime. And of all the things that I'm going to say, this is, I think, the most important thing that I'm going to say, in this conversation, is that societal anti-Blackness and the way that it operates is that stations like Fox 45 and the Baltimore Sun will report on individual instances of extreme acts of violence, right? So, and they're actually focusing a lot on youth. So they focus on an individual instance of a young person that commits a violent crime. And what they do is that they play those stories and talk about those cases over and over and over again. What that does is that it creates a context where those that are consuming the information then assume, oh, this must be rampant, and that there needs to be more policies to be harder on those that are committing crime, and that those that are interested in reforming the criminal justice system are okay with people committing violence, right? That is the narrative. That's a centerpiece of Sinclair Broadcasting's propaganda. And so what has happened, in fact, one of the things that I've been working on is pushing to change a practice in Maryland that automatically charges youth as adults. So, and incidentally, the Maryland House of Delegates just passed the final version of the Senate pass, which modifies, right, the way that young people were automatically put in adult prison, where many of them spend on average 180 days in adult prison. 85% of them are way back down to the juvenile system, where they get access to education and mental health services, where when they're in adult prison, they get access to none of it. And that was difficult for us to move because the Sinclair Broadcasting, Fox 45, the Baltimore Sun are vehemently opposed to it and put out propaganda that says that those of us that support the policy change of making sure that all of our young people start in the juvenile system where they get access to services and stuff, that they characterize that as being okay, as being complicit with harm, with people who commit harm. And the policies that we pursue don't impact the ability to prosecute young people that cause extreme harm.
Well,
this is about the...
Yeah, it's the framing. And look, I mean, this is taking a page out of Rupert Murdoch's The New York Post. It's exactly what they did. I mean, so their whole deal was they focused on the sensational, it was on the crime, it was on the victim, and they still do it to this day. And again,
that's right.
And so what we have to understand, which is why I'm always saying, why you have to have Black-owned media, how we also have to support Black-owned media. You also have in Baltimore, they created this nonprofit newsroom. What was the Baltimore? Was it the Baltimore Bee?
Baltimore Banner.
The Baltimore Banner. Baltimore Banner.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to establish itself. But the reality is, the Baltimore Sun has been the dominant paper there for a very long time. But again, what folk have to understand is that what the right wing realizes, it's called mass media for a reason. There's a reason they want to control the information sources. There's a reason Elon Musk said, if we take over Twitter, Larry Ellison buys TikTok. They will pimp Mark Zuckerberg any way they want to, so he will bend over to whatever the right wing wants. And so now you got Facebook and Instagram. And so now you have the 4 dominant social media platforms, and they can reconfigure the algorithm any way they want to. There are people who are on TikTok who are saying, oh, my content is being censored. All of a sudden, my stuff is not showing up. Stuff is being deleted. And so it's mass media. When you have the ability to reach the people and talk to them in a way and reach them in large numbers, you can now move and persuade them wherever you want to. That's exactly what they are doing. And what black folks in Baltimore need to recognize is what is going on there. And that's when black people have to say, no, we're not going to buy the Sun. We're not going to watch that Fox affiliate. And by the way, if anybody out there, if you are advertising on those platforms, we ain't spending any money with you because the owner is anti-black. That literally has to be the response. We must be supporting black-owned media or other independent media, but also saying to those outlets, you're targeting us, we're going to target your pocketbooks too.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on the point that you raised about the way that they impact the larger media ecosystem, right? Because there are ways that then other media outlets will follow their coverage, right? Because they have the newspaper of record, right? Because they have an affiliate that does a bunch of like in-depth commentary, right? And so I think, and so I'm going to give a couple of examples I think are important, like things that seem innocuous, but have a political agenda behind it. One of the things that David Smith worked on was a ballot question, right? And he funded, there's this group called Peace. So it's led by a brother who's a black Republican, right? Young, brother about my age. And so he put, several hundreds of thousands of dollars into a ballot question that would have reduced the size of the city council. Now, on the face, the rhetoric that they put out is, well, if you reduce the size of the city council, then you're going to get more efficient city services, right? That they're going to be more responsive, right? This was the argument that was put forward by the organization that David Smith personally, so not in the capacity of Sinclair's Baltimore Sun, but personally invested in that ballot question. The reality is that reducing our city council from 14 councilmanic districts to 8, right, would have created two things. One, it would have made it easier to buy off. It's less elected officials to buy off, right, in terms of supporting its agenda. But what it does is that it makes these districts much larger, which creates more opportunity to dilute black political power, right? And so that was something that, myself and many others, and I know, the mayor of Baltimore was included in this. A bunch of other more radical, organizations were involved in the effort of fighting this ballot question. And normally when ballot questions appear, most people just kind of check the boxes. But there was an effort to challenge questioning. And unfortunately, it's a 2024 election where we won, where we were able to defeat that ballot question. But the reason why I wanted to pick that up as an example is that it's one of those things that, again, sounds very innocuous, right? But it's a part of a political agenda of diminishing black political power. And so it's even more important for people to pay attention to that. One other thing I'll also add that I think is really important is that when we talk about the distribution of public resources, right? Sinclair continuously does this thing where they're demonizing investment in black-led grassroots organizations. And they target specific organizations. So an organization like We Are Us, right? I mentioned the historic declines of violence and homicides. There's a group of clergy, formerly incarcerated folks, and Sinclair has done stories to delegitimize them, right? There's an organization called Safe Streets that does community violence intervention. Several stories to delegitimize them. That's not a natural kind of neutral opinion that David Smith holds or his company holds. It is a part of a political agenda because they want to demonize the expenditure of public dollars going to black organizations. And when you demonize those as inherently criminal, the ways they've gone after the mayor, right, and tried to deem expenditures that the mayor puts out, particularly MONSE, which is the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, which is kind of the violence prevention hub that was created under his administration, and demonizing and criminalizing that. And unfortunately, Sinclair Broadcasting has the help of our state's attorney, Ivan Bates, right, who ran on a kind of corporate, tough on crime, right-wing agenda as kind of a nemesis to the current mayor, right, carrying out and being an exponent of their agenda. And so I think it's important that in addition to the criminalization of Black people, particularly Black youth, as a weapon to try to push their right-wing agenda and get our own people to be scared of our own people, which is something that we got to do some work on. And that's why I'm grateful to be on this platform to talk about this. But also the distribution of public resources. Our biggest access to capital is the public sector, right? And if we allow Sinclair through its right-wing media, right? And you actually, I watched before I came on, you were talking about some of the cuts that the Trump administration made.
Yeah, I'm always trying to explain. I'm always trying to explain to our people that if you look at contracts for a reason, the reality is African Americans, we're getting more dollars through government contracts than we do from corporate. Black people were frozen out of corporate America for a very long time. And you didn't get your first blacks in corporate America until the early 1970s. And so we start talking about resources, we're talking about city, school board, county, state, federal. So when they start talking about making those cuts, that's specifically harming Black people. This is to your point about that ballot initiative. That was about Black power. That was about Black control. And so a David Smith wants to come in and utilize his millions of dollars and over the media to put his thumb on the scale, really talking to white Baltimore. That's what this is all about. Listen, when Trump's opportunity zones came out, listen, they rigged it to allow Under Armour to be able to. That wasn't meant for Under Armour. It was meant for low-income areas. But these are the games that are often being played, and I need our people to understand why media is so important. I always say, yo, where your eyeballs go. We say, move your eyeballs home. And so I tell folks all the time, when a lot of our people, and again, I have nothing against these other shows. I have nothing against any sports shows, any entertainment shows. Listen, I watch sports. I watch entertainment. I watch fictional shows. But when we as Black people, when we watch more television, more reality shows, we watch movies and all sorts of different stuff along those lines, and we're not watching news shows, we don't understand how we are being targeted and how media is being used to target us. So I bring the panel in here for them to ask questions as well. Zachary, I'll start with you.
As I'm listening kind of through everything that you've said and everything that's there, this seems like a really serious situation that's only going to get worse because so much of our media is being controlled. That's being sold off and being controlled. What can we do about it right now to stop it? Me, the people out there, the listeners, what can we do to stop this or have an impact against it?
I would say two things. The first is that we need to have in our conversations some really important media literacy, right? Because I think part of the challenge is that many of us don't understand that a lot of the media, even though social media has made it so that smaller platforms are able to reach further, it has also allowed for corporations to have further penetration in terms of their message, in terms of the things that they want to put before us. And so it requires some really important media literacy where we have an understanding of what is the political agenda, right, of the institutions that are giving us news, however big or small the platform is. That helps us to check, to be able to say, okay, this is why we're getting this slant, right? So that's one thing, is that just really particularly those that see themselves as like politically engaged, like there needs to be a serious kind of media literacy, right? So that's one thing. The other thing I would also say is that we need, as Roland kind of alluded to, we need to think about how to impact the bottom line of a lot of these companies, right? And so Roland mentioned like advertising, right? And I think that's one way to go. I think we also need to think about like what are some policies that we can implement to impact their bottom line, right? What's some public dollars, right? Or tax breaks that the companies that are affiliated with Sinclair and others, what are the ways that we can impact their bottom line and really force elected officials to take action? Because one of the things that I've been extremely disappointed in is that there hasn't been, many of the major elected officials in our state outside of the mayor of Baltimore. There haven't been folks that have directly gone after and criticized Sinclair Broadcasting, Many of them are afraid or are afraid to, right? It's easier to not to. And so I think a part of, so again, Roland talked about advertising, but we need to get our elected officials to move policies that impact the bottom line of these media companies and the companies that they're connected to. We need to begin to do that so that we're on the offensive as opposed to just on the defensive, trying to mitigate the impact on policy that their media agenda has.
The thing is here, when you drive down their ratings and drive down their circulation, you impact their money. And when you also boycott their advertisers, you also impact their money. Thelma, go.
Good evening. One question, or not even just a question, a suggestion, because I know one thing we have to do is think outside of the box. We have to beat them at their own game using the turf and their pedigree. So my question is, do you believe that by the government and the city utilizing what they're actually doing in a community on a day-to-day basis, taking that, putting it out on their content on social media, using the content space in order to educate, keep the public informed in a way that they have not, because it's the government and city officials don't believe in utilizing those tools. That way you keep the individuals in your community informed, you beat them to trying to change a narrative, but you also now have created an audience that relies on the updates by hiring investigative journalists to come in to be the media aspect and the media engine that is going to push the stories the correct way before they can, which is going to, one, drive them insane, and two, they're going to be on the defense instead of the offense, and then utilizing that to bring in advertising, because once you get those eyes on what is actually going on through that mechanism and that tool that we have that is so free right now and it's up in the air, you're now bringing in advertising. People want to utilize that aspect, but you're also creating a space where the people in your community know what's going on before they can be lied to.
Yeah, so I'll say three things. One, I think that's a really, helpful suggestion. I think that many elected officials, and organizations do have their own channels for putting out content and all of that. And I think there could stand to be more investment in that because as was mentioned earlier, when you think about the algorithms, right, there are ways that the algorithms make it difficult for those kind of messages to get out. So I think the combination of what you suggested and just generally more investment in that, I think is important. Second thing I'll say is, and I mentioned this at the top, there's something more pernicious about local corporate media having a political agenda than some of the broader media. Because when we think about the average person is not paying a lot of this stuff much attention. They're going to work, they're coming home, they might party on Fridays, they might hang out with their friends, right? But the average person isn't paying a whole bunch of attention. And so the platforms that shape the opinions of those, particularly those that aren't super engaged, right, tend to be that they listen to local corporate media, right? Because again, you wake up in the morning, they got the weather, they got the traffic updates, right? And so what you get is then you have the propaganda where they're hearing that on those platforms. So in many respects, it is a smart strategy on the part of the right wing, if they're trying to go after our communities, to focus on local corporate news because of just the way that our community listens to it, right? Particularly those that aren't particularly engaged. And so this leads into the third thing, which is, I think that's why it is particularly important for us to think about and put out the kinds of content and messages that demonstrate the progress that has been made. I think, unfortunately, what ends up happening, and this is kind of a much larger societal challenge, is that most of the narratives they get about majority Black cities are about oppression, denigration, crime, violence. That is, people are so conditioned into that even when you tell them examples of good things that come out of our community, right, even if it's unspoken, people find it hard to believe, right? So there's certainly a much larger effort, propaganda effort, affirmatively, that our community needs to engage in, So that even when those of us put out content that is possible, we worked on a reparations policy. So I know Roland's familiar with the reparations commission we worked on this past session, but we worked on some reparations for the war on drugs work, right? Where we were able to establish a fund that resources would come back to the communities impacted by the war on drugs. And there are people who they said to us, they don't believe it. Like, even though we got the statute, we can show the bill passed, they didn't believe it, right? So that's a much larger part of the propaganda machine that we have to address ourselves to, particularly as Black people, right? And again, that's to Roland's point, that's a part of why Black media plays an important role, right? Because that's part of the job we got to do, is to demonstrate, here are examples of things that are positive that are happening in our community, and that serves as the basis for how people think about the progress that's been made.
Agree.
Makongo?
So going off of what you and Thelma were just talking about, this is very important to me, not just as a Black person, but as a Maryland resident. And, we're about to open up a business in Baltimore as well. Who are the people right now, like 2 or 3 sources, maybe a journal, a social media person, who are doing what you and Roland are talking about right now that we should be following, who are already out there talking about this propaganda? Because now, my expectation is that people watching are going to be going and following your organization more. Obviously, Roland pays a lot of attention to this as well. Are there other people who we should be out there supporting, whether it's through social media spaces, whether it's through supporting their YouTube channels, who are out there doing this type of fact checking right now as we start to build this infrastructure that Thelma's talking about?
So I got to say that my answer to that is a fairly depressing one, right? Because part of why, I've been, getting with, trying to get with Roland, I had this conversation for a while. And part of the challenge is that this is not something that a lot of people are paying attention to, right? And in some ways, what has happened, I had a conversation with our mayor a few days ago where he said that part of his experience is that people reduce pushing back against Sinclair to like a personality thing. Davon don't like David Smith. David Smith don't like Brandon Scott. Like, it gets reduced to personality as opposed to like the structural analysis of the impact that they have on policy, right?
Why does it feel like we're going backward? Voting rights under attack, schools stripped of funding, Black history erased. This is the Trump MAGA agenda. They want to take us back. They are redrawing congressional lines in states across the country, deciding who gets power and who gets silenced. We see what this is, a power grab. Virginians won't be fooled. Show up, vote, take back our power. It's a temporary measure that gives the people, not politicians, the final say. Vote yes by April 21st.
Folks, on Friday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released its March report. There were 178,000 jobs added last month, causing the overall unemployment rate to dip to 4.3%. The national numbers continue to mask persistent disparities in the labor market, especially for Black workers. Unemployment dropped slightly to 7.1% for Black workers. However, unemployment for Black men inched up to 7.3%. But once again, the unemployment rate for Black women dropped to 6.1%. Morgan Harper, the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the American Economic Liberties Project, joins us right now. Morgan, glad to have you back on the show. So here's what I found to be quite interesting, Morgan. Trump was running around taking a victory lap when the numbers came out. But that masked the reality that, frankly, the job market has sucked since he got back to the White House.
Yeah, like we've been talking about, there's the top line story, and then there's the story when you dig into the numbers a little bit. And look, I mean, the top line story, job growth did exceed expectations from what a lot of people were expecting. But let's dig in. So, as has been the case for a while, the healthcare numbers continue to drive that growth. We had talked last month about how there was this big strike with the Kaiser Permanente network. That strike was resolved, and so a lot of the boost in the healthcare numbers was partly due to that. And also, we have talked about having most of our job growth come from the healthcare sector is not necessarily an indication of a very strong economy, especially when the promise is that we're rebuilding domestic manufacturing. There was some uptick in the number of manufacturing jobs created this month, so I want to make sure everybody has the facts. But we are still very much trailing the types of manufacturing numbers that we were seeing before the beginning of this second Trump administration. And then there was, some increase in other sectors like local government and retail. But overall, yes, Roland, the job market is pretty stagnant. And when we look at a couple of things, there's room for concern, and I'll tick through those. So one,
walk through it.
Figure. Yeah. So one, interesting figure, and I got to give credit to one of my colleagues at American Economic Liberties Project, Helene Olin, former Washington Post columnist, who put this in a piece in MS Now. So there's this stat around the number of recent college grads that are working jobs that don't require a college degree. That's now at levels that we haven't seen since the Great Recession. So that's one point I would say, particularly for a lot of recent college grads. Even in this month's data, the younger or for younger folks, the data's gone up a little bit. We have to put this all in the context over a longer period of time, not just the month. The other interesting thing to note is how many hours workers are actually putting in here. Like how many, or put in another way, how many hours are employers willing to pay for from the labor force? And that's where you see a lot of stagnation. And it has been, slowly happening over the last couple of years, but it does now seem like there's a pattern where workers are not putting in as many hours. And if you talk to the typical economist, there is, of course, like a technical explanation for this that, workers are just getting more productive. This is great. But just as likely is that people would like to be working more and they aren't able to because employers aren't willing to pay them for more hours. And regardless of what the explanation is for why people are working fewer hours, that does mean that they are making less money, right? Assuming you're getting paid for each hour that you work, which is a pretty safe assumption. And so, that's something that we have to continue to look at, but it does seem like it's a sign of overall that the economy is just not quite as strong as it might seem from that top line number. The other thing I would note is, again, okay, so let's say we're in a scenario like I just laid out where people are maybe working fewer hours than they would like to from a particular employer. Maybe they're picking up a second job or a third job to make ends meet. And this is where, in certain sectors like restaurant sector, for example, that would be, one where you can kind of plug in, get that extra job, get some hours in for a local restaurant. Well, this is where another element of Trump's economic policy that is harming workers and the overall economic picture is that he is just green lighting a lot of these mergers that are going through. And one merger that has been announced since I was last on and just in the last week or so is this Cisco Restaurant Depot merger. I don't know, if folks have heard about that, but these are two companies that supply a lot of the food directly to restaurants. They are competitors. In fact, Restaurant Depot tends to offer lower prices than Cisco, which is already, a pretty large giant. And so these mergers are the type, they're big, it's $29 billion, the type that, Trump has been cutting deals to sail through when in the Biden administration, a lot of these were getting blocked. And if this one were to go through, then this is almost certainly, you don't have to take my word for it. The Independent Restaurant Coalition has come out saying a lot of restaurants might not be able to stay in business. So again, the delicate, balancing act that a lot of American workers have been doing for decades, but has accelerated over the last couple of years of maybe trying to have multiple jobs, like the different avenues where you would be able to pad wages if they are stagnating a little bit. One of those outlets in restaurants could be threatened through those policies. And then the final point I'll make about the overall picture here is how far each dollar that we're earning is going. And this is something we've talked about, but prices. Now, one of our sister organizations, Groundwork Collaborative, put out a report showing evidence of, as we've talked about, corporations price gouging because of this tariff environment. Even if, the tariffs have been found to be illegal, we're not clear on how prices will actually change or if they will at all, if companies have already raised them. Why lower them when we don't have anywhere else to go? So that's something for us to look at. And then the other thing I would note, in addition to the gas prices going up, which I think a lot of us are already feeling, how the issue with the Iran war might impact utility costs. The fact is a lot of electricity now is generated based on natural gas supply. Natural gas is very much tied up into what is going on with the Strait of Hormuz situation. And if that isn't resolved pretty quickly, then we could also see a spike further spike. Utility prices have already been increasing, but that could lead to a further spike based on, the international situation. And so, overall, I would say that this is still a very tenuous situation. And as we do every month, continuing to see what the data is telling us, but also make sure that we are digging in a bit deeper to fully understand the economic picture for all of us in the U.S. and especially as Black workers.
This is Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. This is probably a great reason why Donald Trump hates him. Listen.
The thing that I think good number of people on the committee are concerned about is just the very, very low level of job creation. If you adjust what has been the trend job creation over the past, let's say, 6 months, if you adjust that for what we think, our staff thinks, is the overstatement due to overcounting, effectively there's zero net job creation in the private sector.
Zero.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why it's important to look at the full picture. So yes, this month, it is a bit higher, but we have to look at over the last few months and how that's all averaging out. And like I was saying, I mean, a lot of the jobs being created in the healthcare sector, even among you're accepting as fact the jobs that are being created, those are not necessarily a sign that we have a robust economy here where companies are innovating. Quite the opposite, right? If most of our job growth is coming from the healthcare and social service sector, and it's also not that many jobs, then I agree. Not that Jerome Powell's looking for my validation, but I agree. I do not think that this is a sign that all is well. In fact, quite the opposite.
Questions from the panel. Ome Congo, you first.
So I originally wanted to talk to you about where you see the future is going as relates to Iran and this war, and you kind of mentioned that as relates to energy costs. But I actually want to ask now, because I just taught today up at school, what are your thoughts about the current graduates coming out of college in the next month or two, and the next 2 years, 1 or 2 years, as it relates to future college graduates? Like, given the picture that you just painted, it just seemed really bleak. What are your thoughts about them, advice for what they should be looking at? Just your general thoughts as it relates to the college market.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question because, I do a lot of student talks, and last week I had several. And one of the questions I got from a student at the Columbus College of Art and Design, one of our local colleges in Columbus, was, I'm scared. What are we doing? And I asked him, like, well, what makes you scared? And he was like, because it just seems like everywhere we turn, there's layoffs and no industry is safe. And I had to be honest. It's like, yeah, that's real. There are a lot of layoffs. And that's another thing. And I know we've talked about this in prior months. This is one of these stats that aren't always highlighted when we're talking about the general, economic picture. But the federal government is collecting that data for, the largest number. When there's a lot of layoffs that happen, that has to be reported to the Department of Labor. Of course, this administration is not highlighting that or using that as a metric of success, but that is 100% connected to these mergers that are happening. All of the data evidence bears out that merging companies very likely to then lay off workers. It's this BS explanation about, we're creating more efficiencies. Well, efficiencies for whom? Certainly more money-making efficiencies, but not if the goal is to try to enhance and protect a broad workforce. And so, yeah, I mean, I the same thing I told that young man who I spoke to, and I think we all have to be very honest with a lot of young people in our lives, is this is not a stable economic situation. I think especially we layer on AI and all of that in terms of like what entry level jobs will look like. I mean, I've even been telling this, talking to people who are on their way to law school, still think if you're interested in that, and we're going to need a lot of great lawyers, especially on the government side of things when we get to rebuilding the role of government, hopefully after what's going on with this administration, we need you. But where that training will come from is not clear. And so, this is getting very much in the practical and maybe not, fully satisfied. And I think we all probably need to be talking about what is the best path for our young people here. But a couple of things I would note. I mean, there are certain industries that are going to be a little safer and, not, an innovative idea necessarily, but, some of these trades that you can't quite AI your way out of just knowing how to do plumbing and things like that. But for folks who are taking the non-trade, maybe, entering more of a collegiate environment, I think that young people need to be really aggressive about figuring out what they want to focus on and try to focus and specialize pretty early to be able to make their case for different institutions as to why they should hire them and spend those resources that are probably going to be very limited, the amount of spots they have for recent college grads to enter. So that's very practical advice I'm giving to every young person I talk to is like, even if you're not 100% confident in the thing you think you might want to do, fake it. You need to make your pitch for why someone should want to hire you at all. And we need to be strategic about, trying to protect and create those opportunities as well if we are in a position of being able to hire folks. But this is no time, unfortunately, to be exploring and finding yourself. We need to be focused and strategic.
Thelma?
With the recent layoffs at Oracle, I want to get your opinion on what are the implications that you can offer some kind of insight on, because we saw that they laid off about 30,000, if not more, of their employees. But we also saw that they are now applying for like over 2,500 in HB1 visas. So I'm saying, like, if y'all are laying off Americans, but you're going over here to get these HB1 visas to bring people from international over, what does that say about the government allowing this to happen?
Exactly. And, I was listening into the prior conversation about narrative. I think we are in a narrative war on some of these issues too, and calling out the contradictions, just like you said it, is like, this administration is supposed to be about building up American workforce, manufacturing, high-tech, innovative industries. And if we are going to allow American workers to be replaced with foreign workers, and not to say that there isn't a role for having foreign workers as part of, in our companies, but we've got to be clear about what's actually happening here and who's going to be getting, the short end of that stick. And it does appear that there is every intention through this administration of making sure that Americans are being punished both in the cost that we're paying and the limited and increasingly shrinking job opportunities that are available to us. And we need to call that out to change the political calculus, because we are in an emergency situation. And if something about the political environment doesn't change as quickly as possible, then, we might not be able to redirect some of the impacts here where people could be experiencing massive devastation. And, and the other thing I would say is, right, I mean, we talked somewhat about it's not just losing a job. It's very easy to make this seem like numbers, but that then starts to infiltrate entire communities where these job hubs are and the local economy that surround them. And so it is, again, an emergency situation. And I do think making sure that we are plugging in and controlling and making sure we have independent media like Roland's platform, being real about what exactly is going on here is necessary to make sure that people are not fooled yet again.
Zachary?
Morgan, I have been waiting for this. I, have 2 questions. If I could ask them, Roland, if not, I just ask one. But, I have I'm doing a whole entire series of content this week around 2 things on my platforms as activists. I'm doing one around how Donald Trump's 2027 proposed budget will impact Black America. And I'm also doing one around this really great article that was published by the Griot on this past weekend, or I saw it this weekend, that talks about we are officially in a Black recession. My question number 1 for you, Morgan, is do you agree with the Griot based upon the data that came out that we are actually in a Black recession, that if you had probably read the article, giving you some brief summary, is that Black unemployment has climbed up to 7.7%, between 7.5 and 7.7% in 2025, a rise that definitely would signal a recession for our community, as well as all the cuts that are being made systemically to grants and funding from this administration that would benefit Black America. So do you think that we're in a recession? And if we are in that recession or approaching that recession, is there anything we can do about it?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I would agree with that. I haven't read that article, but I would say we've been in just seeing a steady decline of Black economic power in the U.S. for longer than just the last year, for the last couple of decades. And a lot of those dynamics are being accelerated because, as we're seeing with the unemployment numbers over the last several months, the overall unemployment maybe is holding steady or lower, but we're seeing increases in Black overall unemployment, men, women, et cetera. And so that's just indicating a disparity, but the disparity already existed. And so, yeah, I do agree that we're in a recession. What we do about it, you know, I mean, I think it's going to be tough to do much, like I was saying to responding to one of the prior questions, unless we get more political power. And so I do think that's one of the conversations that we need to be honest about. And Roland, I think this is, you know, something that came up when I was there for the State of the Union discussion about what we mean when we say building Black economic power and for whom, and working together on a strategy that is not just about making sure that a few of us succeed, but the broader community and businesses of all sizes across the country. We, I think, gave up a lot of power in being content with just a slice of the pie, even if it wasn't going to necessarily extend to the community as a whole. And there's no room for that. So, you know, for example, how are we thinking about the elections that are coming up and the political messaging that is going to be coming up through some of these candidates? And it is not going to be enough to say or pay lip service for any of these candidates, or we need to make sure that it is not enough to say, oh, yeah, I care about Black people. Oh, yeah, we're going to put something about Black contracts important, but just like throwaway language in one of these platforms. We need to be dead serious and specific around what we mean for someone to earn our vote, to be one of these candidates for president in the midterm elections, and not let people off the hook. Because I am very, very concerned that, again, I mean, I don't know that we can come back from the level of vulnerability that is now infiltrated our entire community and is accelerating in this administration.
Well, this is supposed to be the golden economy. That ain't happening. It ain't even silver or bronze. It's more like tinfoil. All right, Morgan, we'll appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, gotta go to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Trump is screwing all of us. Back in a moment.
MAGA Republicans ended diversity programs, cut funding for Black students, and fired federal employees. And they won't stop there. Now, they've redrawn congressional maps so that they can rig the November elections. But we have the power to stop them. By voting yes for fair elections, we have the final say on who represents us in Congress. This is a temporary measure to restore fairness. They are not backing down, and neither can we. Make a plan to vote by April 21st and vote yes for fair elections.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
Folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, a Republican, signed a bill into law that makes it easier for people with felony convictions to have their voting rights restored. The legislation removes the requirement that individuals pay all court costs before regaining their voting rights. It also relaxes Tennessee's child support rule, now allowing people to qualify if they've been compliant with payment or on a payment plan for at least a year. The measure received bipartisan support, passing with unanimous backing from Democrats and support from most Republicans. The law took effect immediately upon the governor's signature. In Chicago, the family of a 13-year-old killed by a cop in 2021 hopes to finally get some justice as their wrongful death civil trial begins. Jury selection in that trial against the police department and former police officer Eric Stillman for the death of Adam Toledo started today. In March of 2021, the teen was shot and killed during a foot chase. In 2022, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office declined to file criminal charges against Stillman in connection with the shooting. The Toledo family claims Stillman did not follow department protocols as he chased and then fatally shot their son. And now a jury will decide whether the Chicago Police Department is liable for Toledo's death. A former special police officer who stomped on an arrestee's face while the person was already pinned to the ground will spend 12 months in prison. U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro said Bridget Robertson violated the constitutional rights of a citizen while acting in an official law enforcement capacity during the 2023 arrest. On June 24th, Fourth, in 2023, Robertson was working as an armed security officer for specific protection services at a McDonald's. And according to court documents, she became involved in an argument with a patron, which escalated into a physical altercation. And when officers from the Metropolitan Police Department arrived and successfully subdued the patron, Robertson stepped over the individual and stomped on their face, causing injuries that resulted in bleeding. It was later determined that Robertson's actions had no legal justification. An Illinois teacher is under fire after emailing a racist image to staff members that read 10 little N-words. That incident, it happened in Kankakee County School District 111, where the Board of Education took action against a special education teacher at Kennedy Middle School. The superintendent says that the teacher submitted a resignation letter that included apology, but the board rejected it, choosing instead to terminate her employment to send a stronger message. This is not the first incident for that district. In 2023, the board fired another teacher who was recorded calling a high school student the N-word in class. Veteran actress Dee Freeman has died. She passed away Thursday after a battle with cancer. And according to her publicist, over a career spanning more than 3 decades, she appeared in dozens of roles on screen, including The Young and the Restless. And most recently, she was featured in seasons 9 and 10 of Tyler Perry's Sisters, where she played Valerie Barnes, the mother of Andy, portrayed by KJ Smith. Born Dolores Dee Freeman in Louisiana, she enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps after high school, and she later built a strong foundation in theater, appearing in more than 80 stage productions before transitioning to television and film. She was 66 years old. Roland, back to you.
Appreciate that, Brittany. Be sure to watch out the breakdown of Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern, on the Black Star Network. Again, noon Eastern every single day. The breakdown with Brittany Noble right here on the Black Star Network. All right, y'all. You know, it's always interesting to me when people, they don't really think through what they have to say. California Senator Adam Schiff, he posted a video on his Threads account talking about the movie industry. There was a congressional hearing last week on the movie industry and the billions of dollars being lost in this country as a result. Stuff going overseas. We've seen thousands of jobs lost in Georgia, thousands of jobs lost, California. We're talking about, a lot of people out of work. Actors and others who are directors and crew members are talking about, being evicted from their homes, all sorts of stuff. So he posted this, and that was this woman. She's the executive director of Missouri Equity Education Partnership. Her name is Heather Fleming. So Heather decided to post this on Thread, y'all. Y'all, this is what we mean when we say the Democratic Party is complicit. With all waves hand vaguely at the U.S. This, you choose to focus on fucking cost to shoot a movie? We have to save ourselves. We can't depend on this party to do it. Well, y'all, it didn't go so well for Heather. Man, folks started eating her ass alive. She then posted, y'all are straight cooking me in these comments. I haven't been on here since this morning, so I didn't know until a friend called to check on me, LMAO. First, it's crazy that so many of the people I respect are here saying, nah, sis. Second, I'm an organizer in Missouri. My organization, Missouri Equity Education Partnership, is working hard to fight for basic rights, equitable school funding, diverse curriculum, access, and quality schools. Finally, thank you to those who took time to explain. And folk were just sitting here laying her out, y'all, with the comments. And you had folk like Ava DuVernay, Jamel Hill, and others educating her by saying, do you have any idea what you're talking about? And she then said something along the lines of, this is what Ava DuVernay said. Respectfully, I understand this may sound like cost to shoot a movie, But without stumping for Schiff in any way, because hell no, please hear me out. When production leaves Cali, it's like when auto plants left Detroit or steel left Pittsburgh. Tens of thousands are out of work here. I get the anger with the Dems deeply, but flattening a whole workforce is tough. Grips, electricians, hairdressers, drivers, caterers, carpenters, real folks with mortgages and kids in school, it's what's at stake. She goes, thank you. I was viewing this topic from my perspective here in Missouri, where movies, though important from an artistic perspective, are far down the list. I appreciate your perspective. Also, I'm a huge fan. I hate that your first exposure to me is this. I much prefer to be known for my advocacy. But see, this is the problem. This is the problem, Thelma, when people just hop on social media and they don't think. They don't pay any attention. Okay, you're in Missouri. And you're just thinking, oh, like, why are they on Capitol Hill talking about a movie? I keep trying to explain to people, y'all have to learn to connect the dots. When we talk about a movie, you just don't watch a movie. Mm-mm. When I was in high school, I went to the Jack Hayes High School Magnet School of Communications. Mary Waits, who was our television instructor, when we would watch a movie, and we would watch this movie for production reasons, so when the movie was over, folks just started getting up. She's like, She said, keep it in the seats. She said, the movie doesn't end until you get to the end of the credits. She said, because all of these names, that's how the movie got made. And that has stuck with me. I mean, so you're talking about, this is like 85, 86. It stuck with me in that when I watch a movie, even like, I hate when Netflix, after like 10 seconds, wants to jump. No. When I'm in the movie theater, I'll watch the movie till all the credits roll because that's how a movie is made. And whether we talk about movies, music, we talk about art, you can say, the ballet means nothing. The opera means nothing. Means no. Understand that venue. There are jobs in that venue. It's not just a person standing on that particular stage. And so this sister got schooled, and I'm sure. No, she's like, oh damn. She's like, damn. I made Roland Martin show, and not even on my subject. What I'm talking about. Yes, because I need people before they pop off to understand what they're saying and to realize that while you might think it's not important to you, that there are industries in this country that people don't know anything about. Like, I love golf. I play golf. They don't understand. That's a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States. And there are gardeners. There are people who cut the grass. There are greenskeepers. It's multiple jobs. I just wish people, before they pop off on social media, would really take the time to go, let me Google something first. Thelma, go ahead.
No, I agree with you 100%. It is so easy for people to just pop off without actually picking up their phone. You can even talk to your phone at this point and say, hey, what's this? Tell me about this. But they are too busy trying to be seen as these false experts and thinking that they know what they're talking about until they land on a topic or a lane that they just decided to pull out their phone and record and then check the source. One of the main things that we talk about in my circle, whenever we have something that come up like, hey, did you check your source? Because if you can't tell me what your source is, then you can't expect me to report on something that does not have a legitimate source. So it is no excuse in the times that we are in now that you are not checking before you post. You have a responsibility when you have a following, you have a platform, or you present yourself as a person that knows and people are relying on you to provide them with information. You have a responsibility to report responsible, regardless of how entertaining and how engaging you make it. But understand that when you do it the wrong way and you take shortcuts, you're going to get shortcutted in how people come for you. And then you're going to have to think, dang, you know what? I should have checked my source. Don't should have, check your sources.
I mean, Zachary, she got cooked. And admit it. But again, this is like it's just so basic. I mean, when Marvel pulled out of Georgia to go overseas, that was 20,000 jobs lost. When you talk about movies in this country, it's California, it's Georgia, it's Louisiana, it's North Carolina, it's Texas, it's Maryland, it's New York State. I mean, I could go on and on and on when we talk about the movie television industry in the United States.
She deserved to be cooked, and we need more cooking to happen. More people need to get put in the pot and boiled over. And when you speak about what happened in my, current home state of Georgia, absolutely, you had an entire industry decimated and basically wiped out. You have entire studio lots that are now empty because of Marvel's decision to pull out of a state that did not understand the economic impact of that decision, and by not giving more concessions on their conservative agenda. And I think that, it's heartbreaking. And we're looking at a time frame when Black creatives are not positioned well in this current economy because of this administration and their attacks against DEI, their attacks against what they deem to be a woke agenda. And it's hurting because it's really a Black agenda. It's really about hurting, like you continuously said, our community. And we are the ones suffering the most. And so for anyone to make those types of claims or those types of accusations about facts and really understand the big picture, and it indicates a level of ignorance. And but luckily it wasn't willful ignorance because, you had a retraction. You had someone who recognized their fault. But we've got to do a better job across the board. There's a whole lot of ignorance out there and a whole lot of people who are refusing to do the simple thing of just simply checking and verifying what they want to say before they say it.
Somebody said, you're based in Missouri, you don't even go here. Jobs, hundreds and thousands of film and TV jobs fuel the local LA economy because they are high-paying gigs that also help employ restaurants, gardeners, housekeepers, contractors, florists, and more. Let's keep our eye on the ball. She goes, you are correct. I am in Missouri, so my perspective is a little different. I'm in a red state, so our political and socioeconomic circumstance shades our view. I spoke from that perspective, but understand how that differs from yours. Heather, Republicans control North Carolina legislature. They do movies there. Republicans control Georgia. That's a red state. They shoot movies in Florida. That's a red state. They shoot movies in television in Texas and Louisiana. Those are red states. I don't understand Ome Congo. I'm just saying I need people to learn to stop living in their bubble and to realize there's a broader world out here than where you are.
Yep. Yeah, and I think 50 Cent also opened up a studio in Louisiana as well. I remember when a couple of years ago when Will Packer got the hosting the production job with the Academy Awards, and you were talking about it on this show, and people were saying, things like, well, that's just like a token type thing. And you're like, nah, hold up. All of the people that are going to be hired to do, the catering, costumes, all of these things, it's going to be Black businesses that are going to be involved with that. When you talk about your studio and when you do live shows and we're in your studio or we're watching, you talk about this came from this Black company, this came from that Black company. People don't understand that there's real power that comes with this. And so to just get out there and just, fly off out the mouth like that, this is kind of what Trump has done. Like, Trump has made this country so anti-intellectual with no respect for expertise that people can just feel like they can get up and say whatever they want, whenever they want, with no respect for the people who are in the industry and for people who do the work. And when you got people like Ava DuVernay and Jamel Hill and all of these people coming at you, I'm glad that she decided to, you know, step back and check what she was saying. But this type of stuff happens every single day. I mean, you know it better than anybody. You're out there, social media streets, checking people all of the time about not only the misinformation that they put out there, but the intentional disinformation that's out there as well. And so, you know, as a professor, I tell my students, when you come to university, you decide to sign up in a space where facts matter. But damn it, that's supposed to be across the board everywhere we go. And with social media, I heard this once on Joe Madison, a caller once called in and said, nowadays, things don't have to be so, it just has to be said, right? You just put anything out there and people just run with it. So we need real spaces like this, real people like the, you know, the Avas and the Jamels of the world to call out people with you know, with respect, you know, call them out respectfully, but still call them out because there's too much ignorance making its way to the forefront and it's extremely problematic.
Okay, so now I have to play this. This has gotten lots of discussion over the past several days. While LeBron James was playing golf with a few of his buddies, he decided to weigh in on the city of Memphis and then brought up Nashville. Please listen.
At the fucking Hyatt at 41 years old. You think I want to do that shit? Being in Memphis on a fucking random ass Thursday. I'm not like the first guy to even talk about it in the NBA. Like, we all like, you guys have to move. Just go over to Nashville. You got Vanderbilt over there. You got the fucking NASCAR. You got a stadium. Don't they got a hockey team too?
Yeah, Predators.
Yeah. Like, they got everything.
Doesn't look like LeBron's going to be on the Grizzlies anytime soon, so Grizzly fans out there.
Yeah, they know. Their only chance was in 2003 if they would have won the lottery to get me there. And I might have pulled a Eli Manning.
All right, so I'm going to play this again, but because I want you to listen to the beginning of what LeBron said. Listen very closely. Audio, turn it up, please.
At the fucking Hyatt at 41 years old. You think I want to do that shit? Yeah.
Okay. I'm not staying at the fucking Hyatt at 41 years old. Do you think I want to do that shit? This caused a firestorm. Then LeBron, he was asked about it, and he had something to say, and then this is what he said.
How people have taken those comments. People have been upset about the fact that Memphis was looked at as a team that, you know, a lot of black people in Memphis, right, compared to like Nashville, for example. So people
Did I say I don't like black people?
No, you didn't say that. But there were people who were wondering why Memphis was targeted. Like
Milwaukee was too. You didn't miss that one too? They didn't see that?
Not as much commentary on it.
I said Milwaukee as well.
Yeah.
41 years old. There's two cities I do not like playing in right now. That's Milwaukee and that's Memphis. What is your problem? I don't like going home either. Shit, and I'm from there. What is people are ridiculous. They also get mad at my son being on the team too. So what are we talking about? People need to figure out other ways to put their energy to other things that's important. Like, seriously, I'm not talking about the city, like the people in Memphis. Like, I don't like staying at the Hyatt Central. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Nothing. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? We need to shut the hell out.
Okay. So let me explain something that many of you may be totally unaware. I remember a few years ago, Herb Williams, who long time played for the New York Knicks. Herb, good friend of Spud Webb. We often play golf together. And Herb was talking about this, and I think Charles Oakley even had this in his book. They talked about going to a hotel. And Patrick Ewing was the captain. Herb was one of the veterans. And Patrick Ewing was like, nah, we ain't staying here. And so he told the players, don't even take your bags off. They got back on the bus, and he made the Knicks drive to another hotel that had better accommodations. that was through the vein of veteran leadership, speaking up for the team. We're here in the nation's capital. When NBA teams come D.C. to play the Washington Wizards, do you know where they stay? It's at the Ritz-Carlton, Georgetown. Ritz-Carlton. When they go to other cities, they stay in the Four Seasons. NBA players fly private. They're in chartered jets. They stay in 5-star hotels. They get a per diem. Now, there's another video that's going around of other NBA players complaining about the Westin Hotel in Memphis. And when you go to Memphis and you stay at the Westin Hotel, it literally is across the street from the arena where the Grizzlies play. I've stayed there. In fact, when I gave the MLK speech in Memphis, they had their MLK basketball game. And I remember being in the hotel and Cheryl Miller was there and Tommy Smith, of course, of 1968 Olympic fame. Saw them in the hallway. In fact, I remember staying at the same hotel when I was there for the MLK commemoration of the 50th anniversary of his assassination. I've stayed at the Peabody Hotel. I've stayed at other boutique hotels. I've stayed at a number of hotels. There used to be a Holiday Inn that was part of the conference center at the University of Memphis. That's since closed down. I stayed there a couple of times. So I've stayed different places. And so when people heard that, first we got to understand, we're talking about an NBA player where they stay in 5-star accommodations, and he's complaining about having to stay in a Hyatt Centric. It's a lot of people, LeBron, who go to Memphis on business trips, who stay in Hyatt Centrics, who stay in the Westin. In fact, I like the Westin because the Westin came out with the Heavenly Bed. I remember we had a journalism it was a mentoring program, and it was this is when the Heavenly Bed first came out, and it was a Friday night. We were all going to go out because our session was the next morning. And didn't nobody go out? We were like, because it sort of rained, and then like the next morning it was like, yo, did you go out? You go out? They're like, no, I kind of like stayed in that bed. Everybody the bed was that nice, okay? Because they got the Heavenly Bed, okay? So I like staying in Westins. I could afford to stay in a Ritz-Carlton in the Four Seasons, but I don't want to because it's a bed, y'all. I'm not tripping on all of that. That's not important to me. But what LeBron has to understand is that when you make that comment, what you imply and what someone infers can be two totally different things. And so when we start talking about cities, and he said, well, I don't like going to Milwaukee. I don't like going to... Well, guess what? We don't give a shit, LeBron. Because nobody's going to the game. If you are a Milwaukee fan or a Cavaliers fan or a Grizzlies fan, we really don't give a shit what hotel you prefer to sleep in. Because the fans there ain't going to watch you play. They're actually going to the game to watch their team beat your team. But this is a perfect example there where an NBA player needs to be a bit more humble when it comes to when they say things, because who are the folks who are buying tickets? Who are the people buying merchandise? Who are the folk, LeBron, buying your shoes? How many people who buy your Nike shoes, how many of them get to go, well, I would rather have a Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton and not a fucking Hyatt Centric? See, this is, and I get it. He's like, I'm 41 years old. I'm a grown man. Yeah, but be more mindful of what the hell you're saying, because as somebody who's making millions upon millions of dollars a year, a lot of people who follow you aren't in your tax bracket. So I understand why people in Memphis would have taken offense. I understand why others will take offense. And in fact, just so people can just understand, and I know LeBron ain't never done this, probably since he was in high school. But if I sat here and decided to pull up my, let's just say, I'm going to go to Memphis the 17th through the 19th. And I'm just going to say, I'm just going to get one room. And I go to Orbitz. You can go to my iPad, and I go to Orbitz. I just want y'all to understand, and I hope LeBron actually sees this. Y'all, this is Orbitz. This is where a lot of people book their hotels. The Hyatt Centric that LeBron complains about gets an 8.8. It's rated excellent. The Doubletree Hotel in East Memphis gets an 8.2. The Who Hotel at 8.4. You got the Guest House at Graceland. You ain't gonna never see me stay there because I don't care about Elvis, because he ain't my king of rock and roll. But it gets a 9.6. The Westin, the hotel all of these players complain about, that gets an 8.8. And then you go down here, and the Hilton Garden Inn gets an 8.8. And the Canopy by Hilton Memphis downtown gets a 8.6, and you just keep going down here, and you can sit here in the Hilton Memphis. You can sit here and actually sort this. You can sort this by ratings or however, or your options, and I mean there's all kind of ways you can do this. Here's my point, LeBron. The hotel that you don't like gets an 8.8, and so when regular and ordinary people are going to Memphis, they're going to go in Orbitz. And they're going to say 8.8, damn good. And they're going to look at the price of the Hyatt Centric. They're going to look at the Westin is $293 a night, and the Hyatt Centric is $248 a night. And a lot of folks are going to say, that's a good deal. I just want, again, like I said in the previous, I want some people to understand that when they say some things, what they imply is different than what other people infer. And when you say, y'all need to just move your whole team to Nashville, look what Nashville got. And Nashville, they got a hockey team. Nashville, they got Vanderbilt. Nashville, they got a football team. Memphis has the University of Memphis. Memphis, LeBron, has Lemoyne Owen and HBCU. You said you didn't like going to your hometown team. Your hometown team got a football team and a basketball team and a baseball team and 5-star hotels. So what are we talking about here? Folks, be mindful of what you say and how it lands, because you and your money could be talking when the very folk who drives your money, who buys the products that you endorse, they might enjoy that free breakfast at the Hyatt Centric. Zachary, you first. Zachary's gone. Thelma, go ahead.
Here's my thing with LeBron, and LeBron is my favorite player, but there's no excuse, because when we recall when you had this white woman telling him to shut up and dribble, and we go on this whole campaign in order to put her in her place when talking about a African-American man who is of LeBron's status and how monumental he has been to not only the league, but to sports and to communities. But my biggest issue is when individuals like LeBron and their proximity to whiteness makes you forget where you come from and the struggles of the individuals in the cities that you are talking down on. For you to say that an NBA team, in order for them to have a conversation with you, to be in proximity to try to get you, that they need to move a team that infuses their ecosystem and their money to a white racist city. I'm looking like, okay, what is the reason? You know that your words hit harder than the average person. And we can add it up and add it up because of your influence. So you thought it was okay to get on a golf course while you're talking to white men about a predominant Black city and talk down on it because you felt comfortable into your proximity with the whiteness in order to, for them, they made you feel comfortable in disrespecting a minority city. I don't appreciate that. And you should have known better. You have media training. You know how to answer fucking questions. But you thought that that was okay. But don't be surprised when people say, oh, why you want to be in Tennessee? Is it because of the proximity to a lot of bunnies? You don't want to talk about that. So I need you to mind your race and protect the spaces of our race, regardless of who you are around.
And listen, on my Congo, I got people in the chat saying, oh, I don't care about this is useless. First of all, here's the deal. I just pulled it up. They only went to Memphis one time this year. They played the Grizzlies 3 times. 2 of the games in LA, come on, go to my iPad. 2 of the games in LA, 1 in Memphis. I'm like, really? But here's the thing I need people to understand. I need people to really understand what I'm saying here. Move a team, leave Memphis, go to Nashville. So then what? Memphis has no professional sports?
All right.
Here's the deal. LeBron, I need people to also, LeBron wants to own an NBA franchise one day.
Mm-hmm.
I want y'all, all y'all people commenting in the social media, I might want y'all to listen to what I'm saying. LeBron wants to own an NBA franchise one day. Do you know the NBA franchises that he likely will be able to afford? Will be small market teams. See? Let me say it again. LeBron wants to own an NBA franchise one day. Might be in a city you don't like. I just want to remind people, Michael Jordan was that close to buying the Milwaukee Bucks. The owner pulled out the last second. Then later, the Charlotte Hornets came up when Bob Johnson sold them. LeBron, you want to own a team one day. What if when you retired, the team that's up for sale happens to be the Memphis Grizzlies? Just saying, Ome Congo. Just saying. Go ahead.
Just saying. I mean, yeah, it was tasteless in the way where he said it and what he said. I'm thinking about the people from, who he supports through his charters, through his schools. When he goes to Cleveland and when he goes home, these are guys. And if
home for him is Akron. Right, perfect example. Home ain't even Cleveland, is Akron. But go ahead.
Right. Well, where can they afford to stay, right? So it was definitely tasteless for somebody who has been about the community and talks about, supporting the community. And going off of Thelma's point, the venue was also the wrong place, to say it, in the place of all of those other white males. I mean, a lot of times when players talk about the cities they don't like to go to, they don't say things that just trash the city like that so publicly. They'll say, I don't really like going to this place or that place. But the other thing we have to be mindful of is that LeBron, they're talking about him possibly retiring next year. So he's going to have, the farewell games. he's not going to get a great reception, you know, when he goes to Milwaukee or Memphis, or who knows what they're going to do as relates to Cleveland. I mean, they burned his jersey when he bounced the first time. So what are they going to do this time around? He's talking about, I don't like playing there. But lastly, that whole thing about going to Nashville, you invest in Akron, you invest in other places. You should be talking about investing in Memphis. You shouldn't be playing into the dynamics of a black city versus a white city when apparently, as I didn't know, as many people didn't know, there's been talk about trying to move the Grizzlies to Nashville for years. So he knowingly or unknowingly played into that dynamic as well. And so I think it's really disrespectful to the people of Memphis to do what he did and to just kind of shrug it off when he's being interviewed about it. Look, I get he's not the type to say like, oh, I'm completely sorry, but it's just like, don't just add to it by dissing other cities that, you know, have lots of black people in them. And so I hope that he recognizes it and maybe does some other type of gesture to make up for what he said, because it wasn't just about what he said. It was where he said it and the dynamics that he played into in a black and white city within Tennessee, which is also part of the problem.
So William Phillips, 8738 in our chat, said, y'all reaching for relevance on this. Can we get back to something that matters to us in our daily lives? See, William, this is you not paying attention. William, I want you to listen to what I'm about to tell you right now. See, you're not paying attention. Cities like Memphis, which I will call a second-tier city. When you start, and let me be clear, when people are talking about conventions, when they're talking about corporate headquarters, you have what they call your first-tier cities. Typically, you're talking your top 10, 15 cities in terms of population. We're talking Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Houston, Dallas. You know the list we're talking about. So Memphis is considered a second-tier city. So what cities, and this is what William doesn't understand, what cities like Memphis have to deal with is what Birmingham has to deal with. It's what, when your smaller cities, because now they're trying to compete. Now they're trying to get investment. They want corporations to come there. They want companies to relocate there, to bring jobs there. And so when a city now has a negative connotation, Baltimore, great city. A lot of comedians trash Baltimore. People trash Baltimore for the crime. Oh my God, the housing. Baltimore has people take The Wire and say, that's Baltimore. Mm-hmm. That impacts when people decide where they're going to move companies, bring jobs. So, William, what you don't seem to understand is that the reason this is important is because a Memphis or Baltimore or Birmingham, I could cite many others, those happen to be three majority black cities. Yeah. They're never going to be able to become shining examples if they don't get the level of investment, if people don't bring their conventions there, their family reunions there, if they don't bring events there. And that's why this matters. Because there's a multiplier here that you seem not to understand, William. Just like we talked about the sister in Missouri complaining about Adam Schiff talking about movies in Hollywood, it's the exact same thing. These comments have an impact when we're talking about billions of dollars that flow into cities. That's right. And city leaders. That means listen, Baltimore, my girl Shalonda Stokes is over the downtown organization there in Baltimore. Her entire job is to travel America to sell Baltimore. All of the events that they put on in Baltimore, it's about improving and restoring the image of Baltimore. Because what Baltimore is doing, Baltimore is literally fighting the negative connotation of being a city that's not worthy for people to go to. So when the CIAA tournament left Charlotte and went to Baltimore, that was considered a huge win for Baltimore. And so if you're watching this show right now and you think this conversation about what LeBron said about Memphis has no impact on our lives, that means you really do not understand how commerce works in America. How statements like that impact what happens in these places. This, again, y'all, see, again, folk don't get it. When you start talking about, and again, I covered city government. I covered this. This is a photo here. This is a photo when we were in Houston at Afrotech. This is the mayor of Baltimore, Brandon Scott, with his leaders, the sister there, Shalonda Stokes. They rented out a black venue near downtown, and the whole day they were touting Baltimore for tech companies. So, William, you don't know what you're talking about. Because statements like that do have an impact, because look at the amount of coverage LeBron's statements have gotten. And you know what Nashville is doing? Nashville is saying, run it back, run it back. Yep. LeBron is saying, bring the NBA team to us. And this is the same Nashville that's been trying to get Jerry Reinsdorf to move his Chicago White Sox baseball team to Nashville. Because it's about economics. So if all of y'all who's sitting here saying this has no impact on our lives, you're wrong. You're wrong, because that tells me you do not understand how commerce works in America. So I chose to have a different take on this than some of the other conversations that we're seeing, because when you bring companies, y'all, I covered city council in Fort Worth. I covered county government in Austin. And I can tell you for a fact that when companies come and sports teams come, or when you have all sort of stuff, you know what also comes? Rebuilding of roads, rebuilding of infrastructure. That is investment in cities. Those cities go to the state government. Invest in us so we can get this here. We bring these businesses. It's going to grow the tax base of Baltimore, which will grow the tax base of Maryland. It will bring this to Memphis. It's going to grow the tax base of Memphis, which will grow the tax base of Tennessee. They go to the members of Congress to say also, can y'all also help us with federal investment as well to be able to attract these businesses? That's the piece that a lot of people are missing. And so when people saw this as an attack on black people, what we're really saying is you are attacking. He didn't complain just about the hotel. He literally said, move the team from Memphis to Nashville. Yep. Memphis is a predominantly black city. Nashville isn't. He mentioned Nashville has Vanderbilt, didn't mention Fisk. But Memphis has University of Memphis and Lamont Owen, also HBCU. I'm just saying, y'all need to understand that this ain't just about the quality of a hotel. It's also about black economics. Zachary had to go. Omekongo, thanks a bunch. Thelma, thanks a bunch. I appreciate y'all being on today's panel. Thank you so very much. See, y'all, this is why this show matters. Because, see, the other people out there who are talking, they ain't making that connection. That's why we do what we do, so you can understand how the dots are connected. That's why we also want you to support this show, support the other shows on the Black Star Network. Please, if you're watching the show, you have not contributed, please do so. If you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club, your dollars make it possible to do the work that we do. You can give via Cash App, use a Stripe QR code. You see it right here. That's also for credit cards. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. If you want to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag, please go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Hats, t-shirts, mugs, all that good stuff. Get your merchandise. Also, support these black-owned products. You see all the products in our studio right here? These are all black-owned products, y'all. Black-owned companies. You can go to shopblackstarnetwork.com to check all of these out. And please, you can see all of that. Again, I mean, all sorts of products, and please support them as well. Folks, don't forget, watch The Breakdown with Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern, right here on the Black Star Network. And Thursday and Friday, we're going to be on the road, y'all. Let's show the Thursday graphic. Thursday, we're going to be on the campus of Virginia State. We're coming to Petersburg, Virginia, for a great conversation. We're taking Roland Martin Unfiltered on the road. Do y'all have the graphic? Do you have the graphic? Please show the graphic. I'm going to ask again, can you please show the graphic? Y'all should have had the graphic already. You should have had it brought over. I don't know why we're sitting here late with the graphic. So again, we're going to be in Petersburg, Virginia on Thursday, broadcasting from the campus of Virginia State. We've got a fantastic lineup of folks who are going to be there. We're going to be talking about what's happening in Virginia, redistricting, all those good things that are happening. Of course, the election is taking place April 21st. But right now, the early voting is happening right now. So on Thursday, we're going to be at Virginia State University. Friday, we're going to be at Norfolk State. If y'all ain't got it, I already got it. Come on, go to my iPad. Thank you very much. Friday, Norfolk State University. We're going to be there on Friday. And so doors open at 5 p.m. I want to see y'all there. Petersburg, Norfolk, y'all come on out and turn out. Folks, that's it. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow right here on, let's see, hold on. Tomorrow is, so we got a couple of things coming up. So this is the 6th. And so on Wednesday, y'all, it's Hank Aaron Day. That was a day, of course. He broke Babe Ruth's record, so I'll be rocking his number 44 jersey. And, of course, next Wednesday, April 15th, is Jackie Robinson Day in Major League Baseball, so I'll be rocking his number 42 jersey here as well. So that's it for y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla!